Hi guys, welcome back to the FPL Supper podcast. Best served late at night. This is Leon.
Game week 1, we are finally here. I think really excited to be here for game week 1 preseason. Finally over, coming to an end this weekend. Leon, how are you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited. I mean, we've been preparing the whole of preseason. Yeah. I mean, aside from just content, right? Like everyone in the FPL community has been waiting for the season to start. So we are finally here. I think it's great that also there was a community shield last week to give us a bit of an idea. I'm sure we'll get into it later on. But yeah, I think that also just stirred a bit of the football juices for me. So I'm ready to get back into it.
I'm way too many drafts in, man. I've been trying to mull over all the players I want to bring in. Just way too much dilemma this season, I feel. So I think we have a lot to talk about later. Really excited to see what you in the audience, have to kind of ask and share about as well. Hi, Henry. Good to have you join us as usual. Yeah, and without further ado, shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so yeah, for those of you who are watching right now, thanks for coming early. We just started the pod. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and also please drop a like on the stream so we can get to more people. So just a quick sharing on the agenda for today because this is our first proper like game week 1 pod. So most of our podcasts every season will start to look something like this, right? So we will start off the pod with a review of the last game week. In this case, because only the community shield has been played pretty much. We don't have any games yet to review. So in a sense, we will review the community shield game, right? And give our thoughts on how that has maybe changed our impression of some players. And then we'll do a bit of a fixture preview. So this part is basically where we have a look at the lay of the land, right? We see what's ahead of us and also gives us a bit of context on planning. And then after that, we'll go into this special segment on the FPL Supper podcast called the Order Sheet. I won't spoil too much. When we get there, you guys will find out more about what it's all about. And then we'll do a bit of a hot topics segment. So every week, there will be different hot topics that come up. And obviously, we have to address them. We know how dynamic FPL is. So this is what we will do on the pod. We will have a dynamic segment to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. And then we'll just do the very standard things towards the end, which is just to do our team selections, talk through our decisions, and a little bit of Q&A at the end as well. Right, so pretty much an idea of how the pod will go. So I think no better place to just right away get started. So I'm gonna put up the graphic that we have for a bit of a spoiler, but I'm gonna put up the graphic that we have of the Community Shield game, which is Arsenal versus Manchester City 3-0. That has, I would say, in my opinion, that has changed our impressions quite a bit. The result and also maybe the minutes of some players. So, Nick, maybe I would get you to start us off. Any thoughts on 3-0, Arsenal 3, Man City 0?
Plenty of thoughts, to be honest. I'll kind of get started, right? Henry's already asking what we think about Arsenal attack, and I think Arsenal look very, very sharp. I am very impressed with how they kind of got off the right foot as opposed to City. I felt that City was a little bit sluggish. In fact, was not very impressed with a lot of their passing. They're not as clinical in terms of moving the ball around, which to me is what's indicative of City teams of past, right? I don't know how much of this is a Pep leaving problem, right? I don't know how many City players are used to the Maresca system yet. Are they still figuring out things? Are they not used to Foden playing as a 10, for example? Elliot Anderson playing at in the middle of the park as well is also quite fresh to them. No longer having Rodri there. So all in all, I would say very impressed with Arsenal. I think Arsenal have been doing well pre-season as well, especially down the left flank, right? So we can already see from the graphic, Calafiori and Zolis being very involved in the attack. 2 assists by Zolis and 1 goal by Calafiori. Both left backs, for that matter, actually was super, super high up. That's what I noticed. O'Reilly basically almost playing as an inside forward on the left, while Calafiori bombed into the box multiple times, one of which led to the goal. So I think that's my kind of initial thoughts on that. I don't want to go on for too long. I have other things to talk about as well. But Leon, what was your take? Was it within like not what you expected? Were you pleasantly surprised?
Yeah, I mean, 3-0 was definitely not what I expected. I think the biggest surprise for me, aside from just Arsenal starting off very strong, is how leggy or sluggish Manchester City looked. Like, I think they really, I mean, when I looked at some of the passes, sloppy passes, right? Some of the players as well, definitely not up to speed in terms of fitness and sharpness. So I do think that, Man City showing up like that also is not a great start to this Maresca era. And I think in terms of I'm sure we'll get into it, right? Minutes breakdown for each of these players and also our thoughts on whether they are good assets to have. But Haaland getting 50-ish minutes, like I think you can see it two ways. Some people say that, oh, I didn't even expect Haaland to get that many minutes, right? Or let alone start the game, right? Because he pretty much hasn't had a preseason. So some of them expected him to come off the bench and then, they'd be confident that, okay, he's fit, he's ready to go from game week 1. The alternative, the other way that you can see it is Haaland only played 53 minutes. Is he really up to speed? Right. So I think there's two camps about this, and I am interested to know what you think as well. We'll show a chart later on, but things have definitely changed after this game in terms of the ownership of Arsenal assets and Man City assets. Talking a bit about Arsenal, I was very impressed by Calafiori's position, like you mentioned. He was so high up. And yeah, I mean, you compare that to O'Reilly for Man City. Calafiori is that kind of a player for Arsenal. He goes so far forward on the left, and at some point, I think he's like on par with with Havertz pretty much. So it's quite crazy, right, that he's getting into those positions. But then at the same time, he's not 100% nailed for minutes as well, right? Because he's sharing those minutes with Hincapié. So I think minutes wise, that does scare me a little bit, seeing him taken off, at around that 60-minute mark, where we are always afraid that if he doesn't get past the 60th minute, then he doesn't bank those clean sheet points. But yeah, I think attacking wise, he looks very good. And yeah, I mean, those are pretty much big picture thoughts for Arsenal and Man City.
To me, minutes. Let's talk about minutes a bit.
Yeah.
I think minutes are not to be overestimated here, especially in this Community Shield. Yes, usually this marks the first most serious game before the season starts. But the way the game kind of went, 3-0, just kind of meant that there was not much left to fight for. And I think they didn't want, I assume Maresca didn't want the City players to go crazy in terms of, just getting hurt or overstraining themselves before even game week 1 starts, right? Especially when you're 3-0 down. So I think different players got subbed for different reasons. Calafiori probably got rested for, just rest. I think, 1 week to the start of the season, there's no point, tiring out your main left back. That said, I do think he's, with his performance, set to start the season on the left, in the left for them. I don't think Hincapié is going to challenge for minutes unless he does something crazy coming off the bench for the first few game weeks. For Haaland, for example, I do think he had a really good World Cup, and everybody knows he's a bit of a machine, physically wise. So I'm not too worried about his fitness. I think he'll be fine. That said, I think it could cause concerns if, in terms of minutes in the first few game weeks, if they do well. What I mean by that is, imagine being 2-0, 3-0 up to Bournemouth in the first game week, right? And it just doesn't make sense for you to tire Haaland out, right? When you don't need the goals. So that's probably when I see Maresca probably taking him off and giving Marmoush a run. So that's something to think about, right? I think a lot of people are thinking no Haaland, yes Haaland, Captain Haaland, no Captain Haaland, right? A lot of permutations here. My take is, just be careful. I am not super hot on him, but at the same time, his ownership is so high that it's just a bit too risky for me to go without him. But I'm sure we talk about this more down the road as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so yeah, completely agree. Actually, I wanted to highlight one player as well that I think we haven't mentioned yet, which is Odegaard. I mean, I felt like he ran the show, man. Yeah, I felt like he played a really, really good game. It's kind of reminiscent of the Odegaard before he got injured. And a lot of people are saying, maybe this is the season for him. Do we consider him as an FPL option?
Strangely enough, I do, right? I think a fit on form Odegaard is nailed in Arteta's team. I don't
Yeah.
think there's many other players that can play as well as him in the 10. Of course
Eze?
you can
What
put
about Eze?
Eze there, yes.
Yeah.
But I would say that he's not as efficient or effective as a 10 as compared to Odegaard, who's really an
Mm.
out and out 10 to me. So I feel that Odegaard is going to be something to look to. I don't think I would start the season with him, just because of, I wouldn't say PTSD, but just paranoia from his lack of performance last season. He did have a very good World Cup, so I think that kind of helped him gain that confidence moving into the start of the season. So I wouldn't fault someone for going with Odegaard, especially at 6.5. But obviously at 6.5, you have Zolis as well, which to be honest, I am looking at, right. He's been very involved. His minutes might actually be more at risk than Odegaard when you consider Eze also playing on the left and Martinelli. Rumors about Martinelli moving out of the league is, of course, surfacing, but we're not too sure about that yet. Nothing as of right now, but he wasn't even on the bench for Community Shield. I'll just quickly bring up Ash's comment here, which is as Gunnar himself. He said he would chip in that the Arsenal attacking output is spread across the team, which is true, right? You don't have someone like a Haaland where basically 80% of the attacking output goes through you. It could be a Havertz, it could be a Zolis, it could be an Odegaard, and that could be a problem for people who want to own their assets. That said, maybe that's why you aim for assets that are maybe not so expensive, right? So if you, like off the top of my head, Saka, right? So Saka didn't start the game, but he came in, second half, and I think that down the road he's naturally going to be their starter on the right wing. At 9.5, if I'm not wrong, why would I go with him if it's going to be so spread out, right? So the additional thing you get for him is, I'm assuming, pens. I don't even know if Saka is still on pens.
I know it changes, right? It changes.
Yes, they
like
do
now
change
and
it.
then.
Arteta changes it a lot. So without the pen threat, maybe a little bit of free kicks, but we also know, Odegaard takes some of them, for example, and Rice takes a lot of them as well. So without those two additional routes to points, Saka might not be worth it at 9.5 at all because it's so spread out. So Ash is saying exactly, Zolis has been great so far, and is mirroring his Belgium League stats at 6.5, which is a whole 3 million cheaper. So if he gets that left wing spot nailed for himself, I'm very interested.
Yeah. I mean, cheap entry into an attack like Arsenal, if provided the player starts at least. I mean, even if the returns are spread out, you will probably get a consistent set of returns over maybe the 6 game weeks that you have that player. So I think, definitely on the radar. I mean, Zolis is a player that has just joined the Premier League, but he's also had some form of experience with Norwich as well, right? So I think he's looking sharp, basically. Two assists for him in the Community Shield.
I'm gonna pivot a little bit, right? I don't think we should talk about Community Shield too much. Hopefully everybody here watched it. I do want to point out some of the City players as well. So now that we maybe identified that City didn't play super well, are we still considering their assets? I think specifically their midfield assets. A lot of people are still going for Elliot Anderson because of how well he did on DEFCON last year. Some people noted that he was actually really high on DEFCON in the Com Shield as well, earning up to, I think, 7 or 8 DEFCONs by halftime, right? Which means that he was well on track to earn those 2 points. And another plus for him is that he's on corners. He's actually taking the in-swinging left side corner as a right footer, as opposed to Foden taking the other corner from the other side. So I think that's worth considering if he indeed does keep up DEFCONs, which I honestly doubt, because in a City team which you have such possession base, especially against teams that are not Arsenal, they're not going to play Arsenal every week, for example, then Elliot Anderson would probably be more in a just covering the back line kind of situation, maybe swing some balls in. He actually did a really good cross in at one point that didn't land for, I believe it was it was Haaland. Haaland just missed it by a hair.
Yeah.
Diving header opportunity, but he couldn't go for it, and it was actually a great ball by Anderson, which could explain why he's on corners as well, right? If he can whip the ball in well.
I think he used to take in Nottingham Forest. Yeah, I think so. I think some.
So
yeah.
I think that's always an option, right? So I think that's interesting. And the next one to talk about is Foden. Not gonna lie, I had Foden in my previous draft. I think at 7.0, number 10 playing centrally for City at 7.0 is basically no question for me, right? And I've kind of waxed lyrical about Foden multiple times about how when he goes on purple patches, he's unstoppable and he can do double digits hauls multiple weeks in a row. And I'm looking forward to seeing that from him again this year, especially if he's going to nail that spot for himself. That said, people are saying that Chucky is probably going to come in and challenge for that spot, but Maresca has said he's one of the pillars. So it could be another Pep roulette situation where you're guessing whether Foden can nail down that spot for long. And for me, it just isn't worth keeping him in when the nailedness is not 100%.
Yeah.
So for me, I've taken him out. So I'm just curious what you think about Anderson and Foden.
Well, Anderson and okay. So firstly, I even take it one step back and say the loss of Rodri first. Like I feel like Rodri leaving City. I mean, most likely leaving City, has really left a huge gap there, right? And there's no way, or I'd say right now in the City team, to find someone who's going to exactly cover that spot other than Elliot Anderson. But this is a huge step for him, right? Like he's going from Forest to Man City. He's going to be asked to do a lot more in this City team because of how they structure their attacking phases and their defensive phases. But I think for DEFCONs wise, we also have to consider for Elliot Anderson that he's playing against Arsenal. And Arsenal is a team that is pretty strong, right? They will come at you. They are not afraid to come at you, even if you're City. And that's where he racked up more DEFCON. But yeah, I do wonder if they are playing, teams that are maybe not as strong in the attack, right? And City is going to dominate more possession. Then will that affect, right, Elliot Anderson's ability to get DEFCON, make tackles, to make clearances, etc. So that's my main concern for Elliot Anderson. For Phil Foden, I mean, it's exactly like what you said. Like I cannot be sure how good his minutes are. To be fair to him, I think when I was watching the Community Shield, I did see him have some good moments. Right? He took a couple of shots here and there. He did look, the sharper of most of the Man City attackers. So I think that's what's going for him. But for me, it's too risky to go there. And I want to see a couple of games first, right? Maybe at least 3 to 4 consistent starts before I start to consider Phil Foden. Or he comes anywhere near my draft, basically. Yeah.
I'm with you there. Like Foden, I saw him make actually pretty good runs. He looked very offensive minded. Like basically when he got the ball, he's always like, okay, who can I find? How can I dribble upfield? How can I progress the ball? Which to me just shows that he's in a good mindset, right? Not as opposed to say getting the ball and playing it safe, like looking back and passing backwards, right? Which a lot of midfielders do. So I think I'm quite happy to monitor Foden quite closely here. I do think there's some point where we will want him in our teams. FPL MFZ just says, at this point, Foden will have more kids than goals. I think no comment on his childbearing skills, but I at the moment, he took about 1 or 2 shots, which were decent, forced via to save, if I'm not wrong. So I don't think there's much to kind of look at him for Gameweek 1, personally.
Yeah, right. I mean, 100%. And I think just want to bring up what Ashton is saying as well. He says that, we shouldn't reference too much by Haaland's 52 or 53 minutes because they were already down 3-0. This is something that Nick, you also mentioned, right? That like
Yes.
if it's already down 3-0, do you have to play Haaland, who is maybe not 100% fit yet to play the full game? Maybe just rest him, right? It is a community shield after all. It's not the be all and all, and you would rather have a fully fit Haaland for game week 1. So yeah, that is also a fair narrative. I mean, there's many ways that people are interpreting Haaland's 53 minutes in the community shield, but yeah, make of it what you will. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
I think I
Let's move on.
pretty
I
much
think, yeah, we've been on ComQ for a while. I do have some questions that I do want to take later on. So just to remind everyone that, at the very end of all of our weekly pods, we will have a Q&A section. So if we don't get your questions, do ask them again later at the end of the pod. For example, Great Bongo has some questions about Villa, which I think are great, but I don't think it's, it doesn't meld well with where we're at right now. So we'll have to answer them later. In the meantime, thanks everyone for showing up. I think we're at almost 30 kind of live listeners right now. Very excited that we're all raring to go for game week 1. So yeah, let's move on from here.
Yeah. So we want to just quickly show something that we found on X basically, and this is by Tim Bayer at Tim Bayer 93. Right. So honestly, he puts up really good graphics on X. And this one here is basically a chart that shows us the change in ownership of players after the Community Shield. I say particularly the Community Shield, but actually he's tracked it over 7 days, just that within the 7 days, the Community Shield has happened, and that has caused a sharp increase or decrease for some teams. So yeah, I just thought it's interesting to go through a bit of these numbers. So on the extreme left, where you see these pink little boxes, it's basically the average picks selected for each of the teams. You see that Man City is still the team with the highest number of average picks selected. So that's at 2.08. But that is also quickly changing, because if you move in that same row to the end, you see that their 7-day change is minus 6.2% in terms of ownership across all the Man City assets. So people are getting colder on Manchester City assets, and you would see the converse happening, of course, for Arsenal assets, where overall the ownership has increased 18.8% across all Arsenal assets. So they're catching up, right? And I assume, or I predict, right, that they're gonna get very close to City's 2.08 average pick selected, or even maybe surpass it by the time game week 1 comes around, right? So Nick, any thoughts on these changes that we are seeing? Is it expected? I mean, Man City dropping in ownership and Arsenal rising is typical FPL fashion, right? People love to react to the game immediately, knee jerk, etc. Any thoughts on these changes?
Yeah, my knees are jerking hard too, man. I should clip that. That's a funny one. But I think for me, the Arsenal one actually, I'm surprised that it's kind of so low at 1.77 even after the rise. But I realized that there's a lot of reasons for it, right? After game week 1, arguably they have a tough game week 2, game week 3, Villa, Chelsea, and then I think there are also a lot of unknowns within the Arsenal team that a lot of people might be a little bit, wary about jumping on, right? I think a lot of people own Rice at some point, or Saka, and both of them were coming back late from the World Cup. They only started second. They only, got subbed in second half of the Com Shield. So there's no reason to have them right now, and people might be just kind of holding off to get them once their, kind of rough patch to begin with is over. The only people who really are going hard on Arsenal to begin the season are the bench boost 1 folks, right? I think that's a lot of people, probably in the chats as well, right? When you are thinking, hey, Arsenal defense is great. When I was watching the match, people were like, getting Raya in now, for example, on making so many saves, clean sheet, secured, all that kind of thing. So I think Arsenal deserves to be higher. It's just because of the circumstance of where they're at. City, I think, deservedly went down a little bit. And also there are various reasons for that, right? So obviously some people at Foden, me included, after that game, you're like, maybe he's a bit too big of a punt to start the season. Haaland, for example, I'm sure a lot of people jumped onto the no Haaland bandwagon because suddenly it frees up so much money for the rest of your team, and your whole team looks amazing after you drop Haaland, right? So that's another reason for it as well. So I can definitely see those, numbers making sense. One that I kind of want to point out is Newcastle all the way at the bottom. minus 10.5 7-day change. This could be, I don't know when the 7 days started, but I can't remember when they sacked Howe and sold all the obviously a lot of the players were already sold. Maybe actually it might be tied to selling of Bruno G as well. So
Possibly,
a
yeah.
lot of things kind of come together to realize that Newcastle is a mess, right? And naturally people are wise to that and are realizing that, okay, I really don't want to start with anything Newcastle related, because who knows what the team is going to look like. There's a coach that comes in from Saudi League, if I'm not wrong, and nobody knows how he's going to set up after multiple years of Eddie Howe in charge. So I think, to give FPL managers credit, I think we do keep up very closely with the news, and any sort of we're easily spooked. We're a crowd that are easily spooked, right? Where we're like, okay, when changes need to be made, let's do it, right? So I think that's why we see all these numbers. I'm a bit surprised at some other numbers as well, but yeah, I'm no reason to doubt the Arsenal City numbers for me.
Yeah. Okay, so I think maybe just to wrap up this section, I wanted to highlight just one last thing, which is actually if I look at the 7-day change, right? In blue are the ones that have seen the highest increase. So Arsenal 18.8 is as expected, right? Manchester United 5.1 is also, I guess, within expectations. But actually the third team with the highest increase over the last 7 days is Brighton at 3.7. And I think this definitely has something to do with Bench Boost 1. Because a lot of people on Bench Boost 1 have someone like Pascal Gross and Verbruggen both on the bench. A lot of Bench Boost 1 teams look like that. And
maybe
the fact of the
Rata as well.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. And I mean, there's other Brighton assets that people are looking at. I've seen some even triple. Yeah, I've seen people triple.
Yeah.
So yeah, but my thought, on Bench Boost 1 having too many Brighton assets is that I think someone in the chat mentioned as well, Aston Villa is not a bad team at all. And Brighton are playing Aston Villa, albeit at home, but they're playing Aston Villa, which is a pretty strong side. I mean, they did put up a decent performance against PSG, right, in the Super Cup. So I don't see that as a particularly easy fixture for Brighton. So just wanted to mention here for those who are going heavy on Bench Boost 1 and having all the Brighton assets on the bench. I mean, in and of themselves, right? Like Pascal Gross is great, right? Verbruggen playing 4.5 billion keeper, can't ask for more, but just have to be mindful, right, that if you are on a Bench Boost 1 and you have Brighton assets on your bench, it's not a given that they're going to perform well against Aston Villa in Gameweek 1. Right. So I just thought I'd mention that.
I agree. Villa is always a tough team to make up for me. Reason why is because people don't naturally group them with the top 6 teams, but they've been in and around top 6 for multiple seasons now, and Emery has done a brilliant job with them. I cannot deny. That said, this year they did lose a few key kind of players within their ranks, and I think that could potentially destabilize them. So when we look at injury to Onana, Watkins potentially leaving, Rogers having left, Emi Martinez probably leaving, and Suzuki He's staying, but I think Suzuki coming in likely might challenge for that first spot, for example. So many kind of movements here and there, right? Where I don't know if Emery has that firmly down. So I think the good thing is, so one thing that I don't think we get much time to talk about, but I would like to highlight right now is the change narrative. The change narrative being from last season to this season, how much has your team changed? Especially in a World Cup season, World Cup summer, where you don't have that much time to properly train as a team. If your manager has changed, if your core, your spine of your team has changed, that could affect a lot of things. I was jokingly, talking to you as well as a group of mine, where I wanted to just make a draft of players that are only in teams that have not changed their managers, because actually half the league has changed their manager. If you include De Zerbi and Carrick that joined late last season, is more than half the league, which is insane.
Is this probably the highest? I don't think in the at least in the seasons I've been playing FPL, I haven't seen so many managerial changes.
It's like I'm not sure if you watch F1. F1, they like to call it silly season, where all the drivers kind of swap teams left, right, and center, and it's just chaos. That's essentially what happened here for managers in EPL, and I think that will cause a lot of chaos in not only the teams, but in a lot of the players' mindsets. I think that matters more to players than you think. Having knowing how Arteta plays, for example, is, I feel, a big reason why they came up very, very strong, as opposed to, maybe some City players still figuring out how Maresca gives you certain instructions, as opposed to someone who is paid for Pep for like the past 5-6 years, for example. It is very different. So I think that's something to think about. I have, considered teams. I split into 4 categories even, right? So one is managers that have stayed and you should be quite confident in. And these players, like, I think some of the teams I'm looking at are obviously Arsenal, even Leeds, Brentford. I think those are pretty solid.
Yeah.
But then you have managers that have stayed but are kind of iffy because the spine of the team has changed. For example, like Spurs to a certain extent, because they've changed so much of the team. And obviously on the other end, if you change your manager but you're still a good team, City, Liverpool, I think that's still all right. And then you have the people who you want to avoid altogether. Sorry, I kind of went on that a little bit. I feel very strongly about this. I hope some of you guys in the chat do too. But yeah, that's it for me for this point. I think we should move on.
Yeah. And I mean, great points. I mean, definitely, we always say that the first few games of the season is always kind of adjustment period for all those new managers and teams. And most of the time, the transitions does see fluctuations in results. So it remains to be seen, right, how this season is gonna go. But yeah, I mean,
sure.
Yeah, let us keep an eye on that. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next part, which is the fixtures. We're not going to spend too long on this because the whole of preseason, we've been looking at the same set of fixtures. Everyone is bored of fixtures by now. But I think we just wanted to show the fixtures on here because every week we will kind of look at the lay of the land a little bit. And this helps us to also tie into a bit of the macro strategy as to why we recommend some players later on, or what are our chip strategies going into the season. All right, so Nick, I'll let you go for this one.
Sure. So I think, thanks for preparing the graphic as well. I think it gives you a very easy look into what you can expect for the first, I would say 3 to 6 game weeks. I think looking anywhere past 6 game weeks is a little bit too much for forward planning. So just looking at the first 3 game weeks, obviously you have the main suspects for kind of easy fixtures, which is obviously United with Hull and Ipswich. I think that's as easy a start as it gets. 2 promoted teams, and then Everton as well. Then Sunderland, obviously with Ipswich, and then Fulham at home with Brentford for game week 3. That's not too bad, but I know that some people are not too hot on Sunderland for this season. Arsenal is interesting because they have that amazing Coventry fixture, and then they go to Villa, and then they are home to Chelsea. But the way they played at Shield, I'll go so far to say that Arsenal is fixture proof at the moment. I really am not even afraid of starting Arsenal assets in any game, even if it's at Etihad. Honestly, I think that's obviously the next hardest besides at Emirates. So I think, yeah, to me, there's not big of an issue. So if you're worried about 2 and 3, you want to bring more in at game week 4, that's fine, because you look at game week 4 to 8, that's a really good stretch as well. Other than that, I would say that for game week 1, I would also remind people to kind of target teams that I mentioned just now, which is in a little bit of a chaotic state, right? So Newcastle, for example. So a lot of people are quite hot on Liverpool because they have Newcastle to start, followed by Forest and then Ipswich. Obviously, City is a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't know if you treat it as the easiest fixtures, but City usually does well against mid to low table teams. So Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, and Coventry is actually pretty decent for them as well. Finally, the one that I really want to kind of highlight is Spurs. I don't think I've seen Spurs players in anyone's teams other than Kinski.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I know a lot of people are very hot on them, and Henry Sapucho just quickly ask that question right on cue here, which is Spurs midfielders. I'll just talk about Spurs in general. Their start of the game week to the season is not that bad. Brentford is an okay fixture. I don't think it's the best, but it's okay. Newcastle at home, I think, is a pretty good fixture to target for Spurs. So if you're on a bench boost 2, for example, maybe you could have 1 or 2 assets from Spurs other than Kinsey. And then you have Forest, Everton after that as well, which is, a decent kind of run to start the season. But I do, want to bring up my previous clipped point, which is that Spurs is a trap to begin the season. And I do think so too. I do think it's just not possible to really get on the front foot so easily with a team that has changed so much. And they have yet to upgrade up front as well, which I think is always their Achilles heel. They only have Rich. Let's see.
Oh, as you're saying that though, there's someone in the chat who's saying, yeah, if Gakpo joins Spurs, he's going straight into my team. He is someone that is on their radar, right?
Yes, for sure. And I think Gakpo going in will be a great boost to Spurs. I don't know if it's good business from Liverpool. I think letting Gakpo go to a rival is not a good idea. I think he probably won't go for that much money either. So I wouldn't sell Gakpo if I were Liverpool. I do also worry whether they can get the Barcola deal across the line. And I've talked to some Liverpool friends and they said that, it's not just Barcola. They need Barcola and someone else to replace Gakpo if he leaves, because Salah has obviously left as well.
Yes.
So it's a lot of unknowns there. Let's wait and see. I think it'll take him some time to bid in it as well. And to put it a bit harshly, a Gakpo on a Liverpool team is probably going to score more than a Gakpo on a Spurs team as well. So just because Gakpo goes over, I wouldn't say he'll start knocking in, goals non-stop. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But again, right, so many unknowns. So there's really, I mean, again, at this point, like it's hard to say exactly which are the teams 100% to target, aside from looking at the fixtures and assessing which ones are easy and which ones are not. But on the topic of targeting fixtures, I think this is also maybe a good time for us to just chat very quickly about chip strategy. Because later on we'll show our drafts. So I think it's maybe good to let the audience know what are our chip strategies right now, and maybe that can inform them why our draft looks a certain way later on. So actually, for myself, right, I'll go first. I'm on bench boost 1. Bench boost 1, and I don't really like the fact that I have to load up on Brighton assets that heavily. I already have Verbruggen. It's a no-brainer, right? Everyone's gonna have Verbruggen on the bench in game week 1 if you're bench boosting. But I don't really think that I'm gonna have another Brighton asset other than him. I've pretty much been trying to change up my draft so that on the bench I don't have too many Brighton assets, because I really don't think the Aston Villa fixture is that good for them. And yes, later on they will have good fixtures, right? Leeds and Coventry. But my strategy is to free hit in game week 3. And I think free hitting in game week 3 for me is very attractive as a strategy, mainly because I have quite heavy investments in Arsenal and also Chelsea, right? So Arsenal, I'm going double defense. It's a bit of a spoiler, right? But I have heavy Arsenal assets in my team. I can lose them for that week. I go for the other teams that have particularly good fixtures in that week. If you look at Liverpool, they have Ipswich in game week 3. I could potentially get an Isak in, right, if he looks good. You look at Aston Villa, they have Hull as well. I can go for a Watkins if he's looking good. Like some form of a Aston Villa attacker could be something to go for there. And then I could get those Brighton assets in for Leeds as well. So free hit 3 is something that I'm definitely looking at. And then just after that, the wild for me would be either in game week 5 or game week 7. So the way I've structured my team, I pretty much left it flexible for me to wildcard in game week 5 or 7, depending on how afraid I am to go without Haaland anymore. So that's roughly my strategy. And I also saw a question in the chat earlier on about someone intending to bench boost in game week 1. and not sure when to wildcard, there are quite a few different windows. I think 3, 5, and 7 are all, or even game week 6 are decent wildcard windows. And actually, when you choose to wildcard, is going to decide how your bench boost is going to look like. Because if you're locked in on on a wildcard 3, I've seen those teams that look crazily heavy on teams that have good fixtures in game week 1 and 2 only. For example, Sunderland, Ipswich, and Fulham. I've seen teams that are tripled up on Sunderland, and then in game week 3 they intend to wildcard, right? So no point. They're just looking for 2 fixtures. Yeah, so it really is going to shape how your team looks like. This decision on when you choose to wildcard. So that's a bit of a quick summary of my chip strategy and some thoughts. So later on when you see the draft, don't be too surprised that it looks a little bit different. But yeah, bench boost 1, free hit 3, wildcard either in 5 or 7 for me.
So I have a lot of thoughts. I do have a question. I do have a kind of big macro question for you. When you kind of lock in so many of your decisions so early, so specifically as well, right? When you do bit like bench boost, the bench boost is fine. But then you think about the free hit, and then you think about the wild card, right? Does that pigeonhole you a little bit in the sense that because you are kind of so fixated on doing those things, you lose the flexibility along the way, in terms of maybe bringing some players in, bringing some players out, because you're like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the wild card, or I'm going to target the free hit, right? Does that kind of restrict you feel?
I think you bring up a great point here, because at some point you always have to decide whether you're going to stick with the strategy that you intended from the start, or you tell yourself, okay, it's not working out anymore. I need to do something about this. I need to, maybe use a chip even. So it's always this constant struggle, I feel, in FPL, where basically you want to give time for your strategy to play out, but sometimes it's not working. And then when do you pull the plug and say, okay, it's time to do something about it? So I would say I really weighed up whether it was worth it going for this strategy versus others in terms of how my draft would look like. Am I comfortable with that? With Haaland, without Haaland, what are the permutations as well? How can I? End of the day, I'm always trying to optimize fixtures as well. Right. So I guess this is a good question for later on when I can elaborate a bit more with my draft as well. But it's a great point you mentioned. Like at some point, people have to make decisions as to whether the strategy that you went for from the start is not working anymore, and when do we pull the plug. So for me, I could even say that if I'm afraid and it's not working out, I don't see it out of the possibilities that I could even just do a wildcard 3 instead. Like fix the issues if I have any, and then just go from there. Because wildcard 3 is a decent window. So if I need to get out of a spot where, I don't know, let's say all my players are injured, then yeah, wildcard 3 is open for me. I guess I'm flexible in that way. But yeah, it really depends on what we see in the first few game weeks.
No, I think that's fair. The flexibility or being able to adapt is quite important. I feel like not locking into those decisions too early. GV was asking actually that same question, right? Like why do bench boost in game week 1? And I think one thing that a lot of people are saying is that game week 1 is one of the very rare opportunities during the entire season where you can control your entire team, right? And not have to either do a wild card or have to kind of take too many transfers or hits, right? So I think that's why people are trying to get it out the way, because it's the easiest to kind of plan that bench boost early on in the season, as opposed to say, oh, I see a good chance for a bench boost in game week 12, right? And then you're going to have to work backwards 3 or 4 game weeks to start working your way towards that bench boost team. Or you use your wildcard right before that, right? Which is what most people do for second half. So I think the people are treating the start of the season as a free wildcard, which it is, right? You get a full 15 that you want to choose, then you bench boost, and then you slowly work your way out, which is a bit easier than working your way in to that bench boost. So hope that answers the question, GV. All right. Okay. So on to mine. Mine won't take too long to explain. I am looking at a bench boost 2. So I think it's good. Between two of us, we have 2 different strategies to talk about later. I'm looking at a bench boost 2, and not, and I'm still going to have some Arsenal defenders. So I think a lot of people who are doing bench boost 2 are maybe not going too heavy on Arsenal. But for me, like I said, I think Arsenal is quite fixture proof after what I saw the Community Shield. I really liked it, and I'm just going to carry them through the bench boost 2. That said, my team is quite set for a long term as well. So I obviously went heavy on Coventry because they are meeting Hull at home. So I quite like that fixture, and that allows me to. I'm not going triple up. I'm just going double Coventry to enable the rest of my team, right? And then down the road, I'm not unhappy keeping these enablers on the bench if they need to get subbed on, if injuries do happen, or if something weird happens. But I don't have to kind of force them out. That's it. If really suddenly a lot of players start losing minutes, or I'm not too happy with their performance, same as you, I do have that wildcard that I can activate. I like to keep the wildcard kind of flexible like I do previous seasons. So I think I'm still going to do that. And I'm going to try to be a bit more purposeful with it this year. What I usually do is I hold it as an emergency, almost like a fire extinguisher, right? And then I hold it all the way to Christmas Eve, and then the fire extinguisher is going to expire. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to spray it into the air, straight up into the clouds. And I'm like, let me just get some fire extinguished when there's no fire, because I'm kind of forced to use it. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more aware. So if, maybe midway through the first half, check in with me and see, hey, have you thought about your wildcard? You still have your wildcard? Because I think that will be is usually a problematic point for me. So that's my chip strategy. Nothing on the free hit just yet. It's more of if I really see a game week where half my players are playing, the other half, it's pretty clear cut for me, for example. But if I'm still happy with that team. So yes, okay. I do already see a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So really, really appreciate it. I want to answer as many of them, but I think we want to get through things bit by bit. I think a lot of these questions can actually be answered in the order sheet portion where we talk about players specifically. So do watch out for that coming up next. But if, as I said, reminder to everyone who just jumped in, if you have any more questions that are not answered by us or we didn't manage to pick up, please try to ask them again at the end, right, where we have our Q&A section. We'll do our best to kind of go through everything. We want to kind of make sure that you guys are engaged as well.
Yeah, definitely. Right, so as Nick has mentioned, I think we're going to move on, right, to this new segment that we will do every week on our pods. And it's basically, right, if I can get my words out, it's basically the order sheet, right? So I'm going to display it on screen right now. This is what it looks like. And it's basically a way for us to very easily categorize the best players we feel people should be targeting for each of these categories. So I think it is quite straightforward, but I'll go through it also for the purpose of those people who are listening on podcasts and can't see the table. But basically what we have as columns, right, is budget, mid-priced, and premium. Right, and in rows we have defenders, midfielders, and forwards. So you know where this is going. We're basically going to pick the best players that we feel people should target in those categories. We also want this segment to be something that people can come in, right, look for transfer recommendations, and also for us to share thoughts on what we feel about these kind of players, right? Why we rank them so highly, why we think they're the best, or even this also gives us, me and Nick, right, an opportunity to bounce off our opinions of each other. And yeah, I think it just builds for insightful discussion. So I'm not going to spend too long introducing it, especially for those of you who, let's say, are listening on audio and want to see it. You can always come to the FPL Consult YouTube channel to see how it actually looks like. But yeah, I think let's get started. Right. So even on the sheet. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. Quick shout out is that, we tried to make this a little bit fun, a little bit supper theme, as you can see, right? So the budget, mid-price, premium thing is like you can, fast food for budget, restaurants for mid-price and Michelin restaurants for premium. It's just a small fun thing that we put in, right? And I hope you guys appreciate it. I saw one of the comments as well. I don't want to shout out before I forgot. I think we have a fellow Singaporean here saying support local. And thanks for kind of showing up. I know Singapore and Thailand is playing right now, but appreciate you jumping onto our pod to listen to us as well, to all the Singaporeans. But yeah, okay, happy to get started on our very first game week 1 order sheet.
Yeah, so I mean, you can tell Nick is obviously the one that's really keen on these details. You know, like the fast food restaurant, Michelin, and stuff like that. I think it's just adds a really
It's
fun
just that.
element. Yeah, it adds a fun element to the podcast. So let us know again, right? Because obviously we're starting out as a new podcast, right? If any feedback you have, let us know in the chat. Let us know in the comments. And yeah, so let's get started, right? Because we have quite a few brackets to go through. I'm
We
also
do.
mindful of time. Yeah, so maybe I'll let Nick go first. And how we're gonna do this is we're gonna do it by positions. So if we do the defenders, we're gonna do all the defenders in the different categories. So budget, mid price, and then premium, and then so on and so forth for the other positions. So Nick, I'm gonna let you get us started. Who is your budget pick for defenders?
All right, I just typed it out, but basically, my choice is Hume. I think this might not be the most popular choice, but I do think he's very, very good value, especially for to start the season. Obviously, we talked about tripling up on Sunderland, which is a very risky venture, but I do think if you have a one or two Sunderland options, I think Hume is a very interesting one. If you've been following pre-season, he's been playing very high up as a right wing. But he is traditionally a right back. That said, he has dropped back to right back because Mounier got injured a little bit. So do keep an eye out on that. If Mounier comes back and fills back in at right back, then we could see Hume playing very high up on the right wing, which means that he's out of position, and that's basically music to FPL managers' ears. We love out of position players, so that therefore my budget kind of fast food defender pick here is Hume.
Mm. I think on that as well, I've also seen some people say that Hume is not exactly 100% nailed because he has competition on the right wing as well, right? So it may be a case where he's only, I guess, going to be out of position for the first few game weeks, and then we need to see if he's even valid as an option. But yeah, I think for the first, at least for the first 2 game weeks, at least where they have good fixtures, I think Sunderland are playing Ipswich and Fulham. Yeah, definitely one of those more popular budget options. So I think nice pick there. I've gone for the DEFCON guy at 4.5 million. Actually, at 4.5 million, there's quite a few decent options that we have. I've gone for Aye from Brentford. Yeah, I've gone for Aye because he's gonna be playing centre back, and he's pretty much going to be I feel quite integral to the Brentford defense. They have a decent set of fixtures to start the season. And yeah, I mean, DEFCON hit rate wise, last season he was really good at 70%. So I do think that Aya is going to rack up those DEFCON points in the first few game weeks, and who knows, right? Brentford, if they pick up a couple of clean sheets where the fixtures are there for them, I think he could be one of those 4.5 million gems.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I have seen Aya in a lot of drafts actually, and I made my rounds of watching some other content creators, and a lot of them do have Aya in their kind of sites as well, because of him being a DefCon machine. I do want to ask, right? Not purely about Aya, but about Brentford defense in general. How solid do you think they are as a defense? And for example, their starting kind of fixture list doesn't seem too hard, but yet it's fixtures that might have a few kind of offensive players that we are actually looking at on the flip side, right? So we're looking at it's Tottenham, Leeds, and Sunderland to start the season. For Leeds, almost so many people have DCL. For Sunderland, people were talking about Brobby and talking about Lafie as good options. And obviously Tottenham, if the Gakpo thing happens, or even Richarlison, those are actually players that we think will do pretty well and score goals. So is that something that worries you when you have a Brentford defender, or do you feel like Brentford is just solid?
I think it's for me it's a bit two prong. Like when I look at a pick like Aye, firstly, in and of itself, I need him to be good at DEFCON. And then I also look at the fixtures and I see if there are, it's hard to call, right? Especially with those fixtures that you pointed out, it's hard to call which fixtures exactly you're going to see clean sheets in. Particularly when you mentioned like there are a lot of those forwards that people are going for, like Calvert-Lewin for Leeds. And if I have Aye, it could go either ways, right? It could really hurt me if Calvert-Lewin scores. and I lose the clean sheet. Plus, if I don't have Calvert-Lewin, then I also lose out on the points for Calvert-Lewin. So it's, I guess, two sides to it. But I do see clean sheets for Brentford in the first few game weeks. And that's also why I have a bit of comfort that Aya is in the team. I think defensively, I won't say they are the best, right, for sure. But I think they are solid enough for me to invest 4.5 in an asset that like Aya, that I think on games that he's not able to keep a clean sheet, I think I will still be able to pick up those DEFCON points.
Okay, yep, good shout, good shout. All right, let's move on to restaurants, mid-price defenders.
Yeah.
Should I start as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, my pick here is boring. It's Color Fury. I think I did not have him, to be fair. I was on Mosquera for a long time because of nailedness, but I think having seen how well he played at Com Shield and how far up he's playing, I think he's worth the start for Game Week 1. So, I think we talked about it enough earlier. I'm not going to talk about him much more. He's my pick for mid-price defender.
Yeah. I mean, I had nothing to say about this pick because you saw in Community Shield, right, how good he is. The only thing I would say is that Hincapié thing, but we mentioned it at the start of the pod. So I'll actually just add on here another Arsenal defender. For me, it's Ben White, 5.5 million. I prefer Ben White over Calafiori because I think it also shows the difference in our managerial styles, like how we go for picks. Because for me, White is a little bit more secure for minutes because Timber is still a while away from coming back into the team. And that's why I think White is more secure for minutes. But yeah, that's purely it. In terms of DEFCON wise, Ben White actually picked up if Community Shield was a FPL game, it was an actual Premier League game, White would have picked up DEFCON points. He actually hit 10 DEFCONs, right? But I guess that's a side thing. In terms of like Calafiori versus White, definitely White is the one that's more defensive minded, and Calafiori is the one going, all the way up. So I can see the appeal for both. Should we do the premiums?
Yeah, before that, I just want to shout out, some of them in the chat were also talking about White. Ash quickly replied saying that Timber's out for weeks. So White should be good for 3 to 4 game weeks, like you said. I did want to kind of shout out that White is actually a huge glaring kind of gap in the Arsenal defense. If there's one weak spot in the defense right now, it's White. I think the way Doku attacked at him was quite threatening, and I think White really struggled at points. So hopefully they get Timber back soon to kind of shore up the defense a little bit more. But in the interim, I mean, they're not going to play City every week as well. They're not going to have Doku on the left wing all the time. So I think Ben White is actually decent to start. But yeah, I think with Calafiori kind of bombing up the left, I do think, Ben White will tuck in a little bit or maybe stay back. So yes, that's my take. All right, cool. Let's move on to premiums. All right. Yeah. So my pick for premium is Virgil. I think it might be a bit contentious, some people thinking O'Reilly, some people thinking Gabriel, of course. I think Virgil is actually year in, year out just solid, right? I think he gets his fair share of headed goals. He gets his fair share of DEFCONs. He is basically nailed when he's fit. Not much to talk about VVD. I think he's just a mainstay in Liverpool. It's just about how many more years he has left in him, I think. Huge shout out to Jake, who kind of just jumped in beside him for the Como game and actually got man of the match, if I'm not wrong. So I think with that youngster beside him, it could be a mistake waiting to happen. But at right now, he actually looks quite solid. So I wouldn't doubt the Liverpool defense just yet until I maybe see a really bad game. So if that's the case, in the premium defensive kind of bracket, I would choose Virgil.
Okay, I think it's fair. I definitely agree with a lot of things that you have mentioned. I think particularly for Liverpool as well. Like I could see them starting the season quite well. And that Newcastle game looks quite good for them, given how Newcastle are again in quite a transitionary period. So yeah, I'll just go very, I guess, template here and say Gabriel. Like, I mean, for me, Coventry at home in the first week and always a set piece threat. Already in the Community Shield, you saw, and also in preseason, some of the games, he's always their target man for set pieces. So I'm gonna go template here, Gabriel for me.
Okay, sounds good. Henry's asking Takaski. I was like, I would say neither. All right, moving on to midfielders. I'll get this started again as usual. So my fast food midfielder option is actually Sangari. So obviously there's a lot of chatter about him. He scored a goal, which is not what you expected, but they did win 7-0. So I think that's something to be said there. But DEFCON Monster is what we're all kind of talking about. This year's new Elliot Anderson is what been passing around. At 5.5, I do think that's a bit pricey, but I think DEFCONs have shown that they are quite valuable. So for me, I think I'm willing to kind of go with Sangare to start the season, since he already looks nailed in that Brentford defense from the get-go. He is likely, as I think in terms of Brentford playing against top half teams, for example, they will have a lot of defending to do. So I think he will maintain DEFCON stats that he's bringing over into this team. Nothing much else to say there. I think that budget mid kind of bracket is a little bit thin, to be honest, but I'm liking Sangare.
Yeah, I'm gonna go just straight out here in Pascal Gross. I've been on a bit of a Pascal Gross agenda since the start of the season, but I genuinely think he's a very, very good option, right? And if there's some way for you to avoid those tough fixtures in the first few game weeks, the Leeds and Coventry back-to-back fixtures is definitely where I see Pascal Gross either getting an assist from set pieces or even those pens that we saw him take in preseason. So yeah, for me, easy Pascal Gross. Yeah.
Okay, nice. I think not much to say about Pascal Gross. We all love him. All right, moving on. Mid-price mid. Mid-price mid is a bit of an interesting segment because I think there are actually a lot of really good choices in there. My pick is actually a cheap one. I'm going with Solis to start the season. I apologize to any Greeks if I am butchering the pronunciation, but Solis is obviously, I mentioned it earlier, 2 assists, looking active on the left wing. Yes, a risk with Martinelli and Eze, but one that I'm willing to take at 6.5. I think Ash also mentioned that he is a pretty good punt to have, even in an Arsenal attack that is a little bit spread out. So, yep, that's my pick.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Verts here. I'm going to go with Verts because I think a lot of people actually started the season with Szoboszlai. And then gradually we got a bit cold on Szoboszlai, and then suddenly Verts came up. I think he's worth the extra 0.5. Like I see him being more attacking. And yeah, I actually brought him into it's a bit of a spoiler, but I brought him into my team recently, mainly because the Newcastle fixtures are starting to look better and better. And also in and of himself, like his prospects are also looking better in terms of the positions he's taking up. And the number of attacking actions that he's making. I actually do think that Andoni Areola is actually kind of making him make more progressive, like those final passes, or maybe he's also instructed him to take more shots, because I've definitely seen more attacking actions from him that would either lead to the assist or the goal. So I just like Verts at that kind of very nice 7.5 million comfortable price point. If I need to move around, right? If you need to drop down to a 6.5 million midfielder like a Zolis, for example, or even down to 6 million, it's always possible. I'm starting the season with Verts. I like him as a mid-price pick.
I kind of want to linger here a little bit. I know we don't want to overrun, but I think the Verts versus Szoboszlai conversation really needs to be had. Ash as well also mentioned in the chat that it's something he's been dealing with for a long time. There was another question, I believe, let me just scroll up a bit, by another of our audience who said that, yeah, that's basically the question, Wirtz versus Szoboszlai. To me, I think I've been trying to get Wirtz into my team for a while now, but that 0.5 is quite hard to find, honestly. I couldn't really eke it out. That said, I would like to also suggest that I do think Szoboszlai is better for minutes. In terms of, playing a full 90, I think Szoboszlai is just going to be there on the field the whole time. Whereas Wirtz is likely to get subbed off, not because, yes, he is an injury, he has a bit of an injury prone thing, but also because generally I think number 10s do suffer for that a little bit. Like if the attack is not clicking, change the number 10 or change one of your kind of wingers, right? To try to put in new life, put in more kind of energy into the kind of attack, as opposed to you're never swapping a Rice or a Szoboszlai because they are just your kind of rocks where kind of just linking up everything. So I do think if you want to consider minutes, Wirtz is maybe not as secure. On that front, you also got to consider that Szoboszlai does have pens if Isak gets subbed off. I still don't know who it is between. And I think Szoboszlai also has a lot of set pieces, which I think a lot of people do consider as his main route to points and DEFCONs. So it's a little bit here and there. There is the 0.5 in between the two of them, of course. So I think it's anybody's shout. I do like Wirtz because his preseason, he's looking very attacking. His link ups with Isak have been looking pretty decent as well, actually. So yep. I really can't tell you one way or another. And strangely enough, I have neither at this point. so maybe that's just me being bad. I don't know.
Yeah, but no. I definitely agree. Like Szoboszlai and Wirtz have been in and out of people's drafts like, I don't know, hot potatoes, basically. Like one moment people want to go for Wirtz, one moment people want to go for Szoboszlai. There's pros and cons, I guess, with both. And that's, I guess, the beauty of this season, where there's so many decisions to make, even like in and off these different price points, right? There's just so small differences, but it could make or break the season. So yeah, I definitely think Wirtz, Szoboszlai, tough call. But for me, I've chosen to find the extra 0.5 and go for Wirtz.
Okay.
Should we move on to premium?
Let's go to premium mids. So premium mids for me, just keep in mind this. I know we're keeping it in buckets, but for me, the most worth right now is actually Mbeumo. I think everybody has considered him at one point or another. Easy fixtures to start the season. Been doing well preseason. Starting up front while Sesko is injured. Not much to kind of worry about for Mbeumo. I think he had a World Cup-less summer, so he's been working hard on the training ground. He looks ready to hit the ground running, to be honest. So for me, Mbeumo's my pick.
Okay. Actually, I just wanted to ask you a quick question here. Any concern? Please. Yeah, any concern over the fact that Mbeumo actually did not start the latest Manchester United friendly? He actually just came on after that, I think around the 60th minute or something like that. And yeah, that team was pretty much full strength in the other departments. So any concern there?
I think that's a very valid question, and a lot that people have been mentioning as well. I really think that he has basically had enough minutes under his belt for preseason that I don't think Carrick felt like he needed to play more. I think there were a lot of players coming in from the World Cup that needed minutes, and I think he just wanted to kind of rotate things around a little bit. I wouldn't worry about Mbeumo starting at all. If Mbeumo doesn't start for Game Week 1, I'll be very, very surprised. Is what I'll say as a United fan. So yeah, if you ask me, I wouldn't worry.
Okay, fair enough. I'm in the same bucket as well. And I'll just also wrap up this premium midfield section by saying that I'm going for Bruno here. Again, very template, but I think I've seen different opinions come with regards to Bruno in the last few weeks about how maybe they don't feel he is particularly as sharp as he ended off last season. I can see a bit of that as well, but I mean, to me, Bruno is Bruno. Like, he is Mr. Consistent every single season. I know what he's going to deliver. Right. So until I've seen otherwise, actually, when it actually matters, which is once game week 1 starts, for me, Bruno is Bruno. And yeah, he for me is one of those premium midfielders that have not left my team since I started making drafts 3 and 4 weeks ago.
Yep. I mean, Portuguese Magnifico, Premier League Player of the Year. Need I say more, right? I'm back on this again, but yeah, I just kind of rehash my point real quick. Is that I think he had a shit World Cup. I think he's going to be very frustrated, and he's the kind of player that will do better when he has something to prove. He'll be back in this team ready to go. So no doubts about Bruno. I think he's a good choice. Okay, let's move on to forwards and finish this up.
Yeah. So you want to go first?
Yeah, for sure. Budget forwards. There are obviously a lot of forwards that are in contention. Like I said earlier, I actually did have Robbie in my team at one point, but I have since moved to DCL. I know it's boring, but it's kind of out of necessity a little bit, and that's because I didn't want to triple up on Sunderland. A bit of a sneak peek into my draft as well. So with that said, I do think DCL is a safe play per se. A lot of people have him. He's on pens. He is leading, the attack. There's not much to say, and I want to remind myself as well that Leeds is one of those teams that has the same manager from last year, which means that they know the game plan. Their players haven't changed that much either. So I think they'll be good to go game week 1. And I think that's pretty much what I need to know for DCL. He has a pretty decent starting fixtures as well. So DCL for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think DCL is a darling of the FPL community. Like right now, almost every draft that I've seen has him. I mean, you can't really say much to go against it, especially with his season form. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how he does. I've actually gone for the striker that he's playing against in game week 1, which is Igor Jesus. So Igor Jesus is my pick. I know people have gone a little bit colder, in my opinion, on him, and I think that's good, right? Because I kind of want him as a bit of a differential for me. And it's pretty much him or Calvert-Lewin for me in that 6 million spot. And I've looked at the weeks. For me, it's actually not so much about the whole set of 5 fixtures when I looked at this 6.0 million pick. I looked at the weeks where I would rather play my 5th mid versus this 3rd forward. And I've decided that, okay, in those weeks that I need that third forward, Igor Jesus has those better fixtures, and that's mainly why I've done it. I think something else about Igor Jesus is that he's at home, and Calvert-Lewin is playing away from home, at least in the first game week. So that also kind of plays into my mind a little bit. I generally, as an FPL player, don't look too much into home and away, but I think that does have an impact as well. And for Igor Jesus, aside from this game week 1 fixture against Leeds, I'm also targeting the Coventry fixture in game week 5. So yeah, that's just my thoughts around it. I like that 6 million bracket, and that's why I think this kind of less than 6.5 million budget forward spot, there's a lot of places you can go, and I think you can't really go wrong with any of them. It's going to be pretty much what happens when one doesn't perform. Do you switch to the other? I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Yep, I think it's going to be easy to switch. I think Aaron mentioned if DCL goes out injured and brings everyone down with him, I mean, at least everyone has him, right? And then you just kind of swap over to a Bobby, you swap over to a Igor Jesus, or even a Garcia, as Henry mentioned, if he comes good by then, right? Okay, let's go. Mid-price. I will start again. For me, this one's straightforward. I think there's no one else but Joao Pedro for me.
You can put it in for me as well. I don't have. This is a player that has not left the draft. He's only looked better and better, in my opinion, as preseason has gone. And ownership wise, I think it's just been an upward trajectory. Honestly, my thoughts is if you don't have Joao Pedro in your draft, I think you get him in right now.
Yes,
that's
I agree.
my thoughts.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not even biased from a Chelsea fan. Leon being a Chelsea fan, it's not even that. Like, I really think that they mispriced him. I do think that Joao Pedro should not be 7.5. All right, let's get back to this. I think nobody needs to know, but I think everyone has Pedro, so that's fine. Let's move into premiums. So premiums, I'm going to be boring. I did see a quick message from Ash saying that we should remove Haaland and Bruno from this kind of premium sector because everybody has them. But I think it's worth talking about, right? I think some people jumped off Haaland already. For me, I think the starting fixtures are good enough for me to still keep him. Haaland is one of those that, even though he went off 52nd minute, I think he'll start game week 1. I think he'll play 90 minutes, no problem. I think that's how much faith I have in Haaland. I think he only goes off if they are leading Bournemouth by 2 or 3-0, which by then he probably would have scored 2 of them anyway. So for me, I feel like it's just a bit too risky to go without Haaland. Leon, what's your pick?
Yeah, no, even before I talk about the pick, I think Ashton's comment on leaving Haaland and Bruno out from those premium sections, not to worry, like moving forward into the next few game weeks, we obviously, if Haaland and Bruno's ownership is sky high, we're not going to say buy Bruno or buy Haaland. That's going to be pretty much like not insightful. So fair point. And this is only for this week because it's game week 1. So from game week 2 onwards, once transfers are actually happening, we would actually put those kind of picks that we feel people should be targeting instead of those high ownership ones. But yeah, I'll just wrap up this by saying Thiago here, and it's gonna give a bit of insight as to my draft. But I think Thiago is someone that has been really under. I don't even know how to phrase this. Like someone that has really gone under the radar, I guess, for the performance they put up last season for the Brentford team. And Brentford is a very decent attack. Like Dango Atara, Kevin Schade, and Thiago. Collectively, they did very well last season for a mid-table team like Brentford. And I can only see that happening again this season. Thiago, we know what we get with him, right? He's on pens. He's really clinical as a finisher, and he's very very good for minutes. And for 8 million, it is pricey, but I think what you get because of all those things that I've mentioned, I think it makes it worth it, right? And fixtures wise, as we mentioned about Brentford earlier on, I think fixtures are okay for them. I do see Thiago getting some joy in the first few game weeks. So for me, it's gonna be Thiago. What do you think about this pick?
I personally think it's a bit too pricey for me. I do think, for lack of a better term, I do think he peaked last year. I don't think he can score that many goals. They had like 9 or 10 pens that he converted, and that's like top of the league for pens awarded as well. So do I see Brentford getting the same number of pens? Hard to say, right? I think that's a bit of an anomaly. I don't want to take anything away from him. He scored a lot of non-penalty goals as well. So I think he will continue to score goals, but whether he scores enough goals to justify the 8.0, I don't know. So which is why I'm not really starting with him. I'm maybe not as bullish on the Brentford attack as you. So I would have to, it's a wait and see for me, right? And as you said, we have so many decent options at a lower price point to kind of play around with for now, that I rather kind of put my money elsewhere. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. And maybe just special mention to Isak as well, because I think some people are starting to put Isak in there as a bit of an option. I don't mind it, but for me, I think it is just that bit of a risk in my mind. Like whether it's the injury situation, like is he made of glass right now, and he needs to be very very well protected by Areola, so maybe he only gets 60-70 minutes to ease him back into so that's something that concerns me also, because of how much we will be paying for him if we do go for someone like Isak.
Yes, I think the price is a problem. Realistically, you can only have Isak if you don't have either Bruno or Haaland. So that's a big trade-off. If you're on one of those drafts, I think Isak is a very good option, especially to start the season. But that's my take. Okay, I did want to mention that there are a lot of questions in the chats, and I really appreciate it. I just want to let you guys know that I did see all your questions, but there are a lot of specific questions about specific players that we can't answer right now. What I would suggest I would do is I would do maybe a lightning round at the end, right? As part of the Q&A, I'll just kind of take turns. I'll ask Leon one, I'll answer one, and then we can just quickly battle off some of what we think about all these players, because there are obviously a lot of players, but we maybe have not much time left. All right, let's move on.
Should we go straight into our teams then? Should we just go straight into your draft and mine?
Yeah, sure. I think we were supposed to do hot topics, but do you think we have time, like a quick 5 minutes, or you think not?
I think let's take more questions. Maybe we can take more, because there are a lot of questions today. So let's pull up our drafts.
Okay.
And this is, I guess, what people have come for. So Nick, I'm gonna let you kick this off with your draft. Lots of questions that will come in after that, I'm sure. So
yes,
go for it.
I will try to answer them as and when they come in, and all that, right? So just a quick reminder, I am on a bench boost 2 for now. Obviously, I'd like to preface that there are still a few days before the start of the season. There might be injuries, there might be mind changes. I'm probably going to think a lot more, but this is what I have right now. So on the keeper front, I have Kinski at 4.5 and Rashford on the bench. That's mainly to capitalize on the Coventry versus Hull fixture on Gameweek 2. In defense, Calafiori, as I've mentioned earlier, very, very offensive. I like it a lot. Shaw for the first 2 fixtures, I think, is a very common option. So won't go too much about that. Love the guy. Hume is my budget pick as well. I think I do want to just punt a little bit on his potential attacking returns, as well as clean sheet returns against Ipswich and Fulham to start the season. Right. On the bench, interestingly enough, you can see I have Kirkes on the bench. I actually am very, very caught in two minds because I do want to start Kirkes against Newcastle, but I have yet to find a better solution for who should be on the bench. Might be a Hume, might be Shaw, but that doesn't make sense to me either. So I'll kind of see how I can kind of fit Kirkes in. And then last on my bench for defense is Thomas from Coventry. Reason why I picked Thomas over, Amanda, Kitching, as well as Van Nieuwijk is because I think Thomas is quite nailed on to start the season as far as I've read, and he is really good for DEFCONs coming from Championship. So I have no doubt that he'll have even more in the Premiership. So I think having Thomas kind of as an enabler kind of works really well for me. In midfield, the United duo, Bruno and Bomo, I think they're going to be very good for at least 3 fixtures. Even then, after that, I think they play City, but I probably won't sell, right? So I know a lot of people are going to Wildcard 3 to get United out. I think there's no reason, if they're playing well and they're scoring, there's no reason to take them out. They actually have a really good run of fixtures right after the City fixture, from 5 all the way to 8. So I think I'm happy to kind of hold them for the mid to long term. I have Zolis. I already mentioned him. He's at 6.5. A little bit punty, yes, but I think he's good for the first few game weeks. Want to go with him. And then Lefay as well. So, Elf at 6.0, really, really, their core attacking kind of structure is kind of going around him. Some people say basically he's their De Bruyne. He might do a lot more assisting than scoring, but, if he's in and around and he's involved, I think that'll be good. And at 6.0, I can't expect that much more. Then on in the on the bench for midfield, I have Sangare, right? I mentioned him as well in order sheet as a DEFCON monster all year long. I think I can kind of keep him there. And then in attack, pretty much template: Haaland, Calvert-Lewin, and Joao Pedro. So pretty standard. I was just telling you and some of my friends that I'm kind of annoyed that this team is so templatey. I do, like, as I listen to more and more kind of content creators, they highlight, we brought in these 100 experts to talk about what their team is. I gather all the stats, and then I'm like, these names sound so familiar because they're all in my team. And I swear I did not copy anybody's team, right? I kind of overhauled my team a little bit to put in Calafiori and Zolis after the Com Shield, and I'm not happy. Right? I'm not happy to the fact that I'm so close to what people consider the template. I don't like to always be too templatey or too close to what everyone's playing. I find it a bit boring, but at the same time, I do recognize that might be the way to get a good start, right? Because most people have done their research. So that's it for me. Any questions, I'm happy to entertain them in the chat. And yeah, I kind of want to quickly mention as well that one thing we want to try to do as well, I think it'll be quite fun, is potentially do a rate my team or two for one of you guys in the chat. So if you guys want to drop your team in, we'll pick 1 or 2 by random to do a quick rate my team later on as well, if you want to do that. Okay, Leon, on to you. Wait, do you have any questions about my team? I forgot.
One question.
Yes.
One question. Bruno captain over Haaland captain, even though you have Haaland. Any reason for that? Other than the fact that you are a Manchester United fan?
No, there's no United bias here. I keep my FPL quite separate from my kind of supporting bias. I'll be honest and say I wasn't super happy with how City looked at the Com Shield. That's number one. I think the Community Shield make me think that, okay, maybe they're not really that ready for Game Week 1. Yes, Marcus, I see you. But I do think that on one is one of the big things. Number 2 is the opponents, right? I do think that a Hull fixture is a lot easier than a Bournemouth fixture, even though it's City home. I think Bournemouth has been, EPL mainstays for quite a while. They have dealt with Haaland before. So I don't think that they're going to have as part of a time dealing with the attack of City as opposed to Hull dealing against the United attack. There usually is a case against United playing against a low block. I understand that, right? But I think I've mentioned in one of my chats that if you have a low block and this year you have a lineup of Cunha, Bruno, Ahmad, Tillemans, and Mainu, for example. I don't know if Mainu's fit, and then Mbeumo leading the line. I fancy my chances of picking out that low block, right? I think we have brought in a few good players that can, like, especially in Tillemans, that can make that final pass. Bruno no longer has to do it alone. Kuna has always been good with close ball control and dribbling through the lines, holding the ball under pressure. Mainu as well. So I do think that that's all very good. Ahmad's a brilliant dribbler on his day as well. So I think I'm not too worried about the low block. And for now, I have captaincy on Bruno, but it's probably going to change another 242 times before the game week starts. So who knows?
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, so if you guys have any questions for Nick as well, do drop it in the chat. We can answer that in the Q&A section. But I think I'll just quickly move on to my draft.
Yes, please go.
Okay, surprise. I think it's good. It's good that we have very different looking drafts. Right? I mean, you say yours is template, but it's quite different from mine. And I think it's nice to have two of us on different strategies to see how we do overall in the first few game weeks and assess different strategies. I think that's the whole point of the pod as well, right? So I'll just start off first. In goal, I have Lemons, and on the bench is Verbruggen. I just like the rotation there. And the plan, as I've mentioned from the start, is bench boost 1, free hit 3, and wildcard either in game week 5 or game week 7. So with those fixtures in mind, where I'm not using chips in game week, I'm using chips in game week 3, so I can avoid those bad fixtures there. The fixtures for my keepers are pretty much optimized for all the other weeks. So I'm quite happy with this rotation. They work quite well together. In defense, I have Gabriel, Colwell, and White. Now, I think Gabriel and White, I don't have to mention too much because money has come in from the lack of Haaland in this draft that I will speak about later on. But with that extra money, I want to invest it in the Arsenal defense, and Gabriel is there. I've mentioned about White as well in the order sheet just now. I like the minutes for him at least until Timber comes back. So Colwell here is the one that I think I need to give a bit more explanation on. I really like the fixtures for Chelsea. I actually think that people have not kind of entertained the idea of Chelsea defense because, to be fair, in preseason we still look a bit shaky. But I really want to do a bit more of a fixtures play here, and I do like the Hull fixture for Chelsea in game week 4. And that's why I kind of want to be tripled up on Chelsea by then. This helps me to get there. And to be fair, in the first few weeks, Chelsea's fixtures are okay, right? And Colwell, to be fair, is also our, in my opinion, right, most nailed Chelsea centre back. And I look at the DEFCON numbers they picked up last season, it's pretty decent as well. So for me, actually, I think Colwell is a different pick. Not someone that a lot of people are going for, but I quite like the fixtures and the rotation that he gives me. In midfield, it's Bruno captain. It's Semenyo, Mbeumo, and Wirtz. Now, Mbeumo and Bruno, it's not too different from a lot of people's drafts. I don't have to mention too much. Bruno captain is mainly because I have no Haaland here, but I have Semenyo at 8.5 million to kind of cover the Man City attack because I feel like they will start the season either doing really well and getting a lot of kind of goals, and I want at least a piece of that if I don't have Haaland. And Semenyo for me is the next best asset to go for. I'm not saying that Semenyo can cover Haaland, and this is a bit of an insurance for me, I guess, because I'm not so comfortable to go completely with no Man City attackers. If I have no Haaland, I want some cover in Semenyo. So that's why I've gone for him. I am aware of what people are saying about how he is more of a creator now than he is out on the wings, right? Less so closer to goal and taking shots. But to be fair, in the Community Shield, we already saw him take a couple of shots against David Raya. And to be fair, I did feel at some point in time where that Semenyo did look like one of the better attackers for Man City. Right, or at least the one with the most likelihood to make something happen. So for me, Semenyo is there as a bit of an insurance. Wirtz, talked about him. I like Liverpool's fixtures in the first few, and I also like this Newcastle game for them. I prefer him over Szoboszlai. Up front, João Pedro is sky high in ownership. Thiago, for me, under the radar. I do like Brentford's kind of fixtures in the first few and also what Thiago offers. I know he's a bit more pricey. And again, it's mainly because I don't have Haaland that I can afford these upgrades elsewhere. I do like starting the season with differentials as well. And Thiago for me is one of those. I think a lot of people can't go for pretty much. If you have a Bruno and Haaland in your team, it's hard to fit another 8 million Thiago in there, right? So for me, Thiago is here. And Igor Jesus is a player that I will use in game week 1 against Leeds here. And the next time I use him is probably in game week 4 and game week 5, where the fixtures start to get good. Because in game week 2 and 3, it's tough fixtures for Forest, so he'll be on the bench. And then on the bench, other than Verbruggen that we mentioned just now, there's O'Shea from Ipswich. I'm backing against Sunderland here, but I think he's quite good for DEFCON if O'Shea does play centre back. The last friendly for Ipswich, he played right back, but I'm not too concerned. I think he will start the season at centre back. And then Schade and Mykolenko here on the bench. So I mentioned just now that I don't want to go too heavy on the on Brighton assets because I'm bench boosting in game week 1. And I already have Verbruggen. And I don't think Pascal Gross is going to knock it out of the park against Aston Villa. So I want to go a bit different here. So I've gone for Schade. So Schade here against Tottenham is doubling down on my Brentford, I guess, my thoughts on Brentford and how they will start the season. But I just like how it may be a bit of bias in the recent game that they just won Frankfurt 7-0. But I like how sharp they look. The Brentford attackers to me look very, very good. And yeah, I feel like we are not giving them as much respect as we should. Right? I do think that they will score in the first few game weeks, and it's usually those usual suspects, right? Thiago, Schade, or Dango Otara. So I'm gonna have both of them here. Schade is also 0.5 cheaper than Otara. Schade is at 6 million, so I like that. There is some competition, right? But I'm pretty sure that Kevin Schade is first choice, and if the competition, Jadon Anthony, right, takes off some minutes from him, then let's see what happens. But I'm okay to start the season with Schade. And yeah, Mykolenko, this last one is purely a fixture play. I know it's not great for DEFCON, but I've looked at game week 1, they play Crystal Palace, and then later down the line, game week 5 and 6, they have Ipswich and Hull. So it's purely a fixture play. It also, having him here also allows me to then delay the wildcard to game week 7, right? Because in 5 and 6, he'll have such good fixtures, I can start him. So I've really looked at every single week from game week 1 to game week 6 and which is the 11 players I'm going to start. And really just optimize this team for fixtures and also based on the strategy. So yeah, I mean, pretty much that's the thoughts behind some of these players that I know not a lot of people are going for. But yeah, I've had a look and I'm quite happy with this draft right now. I think the last thing I'll say also is there is a plan to get Cole Palmer in game week 4 for Hull City, because for that one, he's going to be the best captain. Assuming as things stand, Palmer will be the best captain for game week 4. And I do have plans to bring him in, but that would be Mbumo out for Cole Palmer, and I'll have to find that extra 1.5 from somewhere. It could be downgrading Schade to from 6 million to a 4.5 just a fodder, or it could be bringing Thiago down to a 6 million. It is there's ways that I've thought about that I can get Palmer in. But yeah, Mbumo is someone that won't be in the team for too long. Mainly also because Manchester United's fixtures start to get a little bit tougher after a while, after the first few game weeks. So yeah, long ramble. But let me know your thoughts, Nick.
My first thought is that we've once again failed to keep it under 1.5 hours. But it's okay. It's okay. Thanks everyone for kind of sticking with us. I'm enjoying myself a lot. So let's go on for a little bit longer and get this kind of knocked out, right? I do have a few questions for you. First question is, interestingly, you went with Lamans and White. I know a lot of managers are going with either Maguire or Shaw. So why not, instead of Lamans and White, why not do, say, Raya and Shaw?
I mean, that's a fair point, right? But for me, Luke Shaw is someone that I don't think he's great for DEFCON. That's one. And I also don't think he's super good in the attacking sense that he'll get me attacking returns. So I don't really like the prospect of Luke Shaw.
Okay.
I know he's pretty good for starts, right? He started like 38 games last season, but then it will purely be just clean sheets that I'm looking for and nothing else. Then for Lemons here, I like the rotation because once Manchester United's fixtures get bad, I drop Lemons down to the bench and Verbruggen comes in. Yeah, and I don't have any of those Manchester United defenders that I need to play already because Lemons on the bench. If I start with Luke Shaw, then I need to find a defender, and even if he has a subpar fixture, I have to play him because the other options on my bench don't rotate as well.
Okay, interesting. Because
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm surprised that you consider dropping Lemons, because leaving a 5.0 keeper on the bench feels a bit wasteful. But I mean that's fine. But okay, get to hear your kind of thought process there. Next one is Semenyo, right? I think you mentioned a little bit about that. I am a firm disbeliever of the fact that you can cover attack. I think offensive coverage for me is not a thing. If your player is one that doesn't get involved in attack, no matter how many you score, it might not matter. That said, Semenyo is not the worst pick, right? Semenyo is a very offensive player. Yes, seems to be hugging the touchline a little bit more this preseason, and we'll see how that kind of relates to his returns. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he will be kind of enough to cover per se, right? Which leads me to my third question, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid are you of not having Haaland?
You know, surprisingly, because I've worked out my captaincies in all the weeks, I'm actually pretty okay. I thought I would, trust me, when game week 1 comes around and when we see Haaland banging in the goals, you will receive text from me saying that, what have I done? what have I done?
Oh, man.
Yeah,
okay.
But
I,
at least on the planning perspective, from a planning perspective, I'm comfortable enough. But, famous last words, he's going to punish me, I'm sure.
Okay. All right. Let's do Q&As, right? I promised the audience Q&As. I do want to do this. I want to make sure you guys are engaged. Thanks for staying all the way. We have 50 people still watching. This is amazing. Thanks to everybody for coming. We really appreciate the support. And yeah, let's get the questions. I think let's go back up to, I guess, my... okay. I see a question from Ashton. Which is, are you comfy to play Kinski as your main goalkeeper for most weeks? Are you rotating your goalkeeper? So it's likely going to, obviously it's a bit iffy because my second one is Rushworth, right? I think I am more keen to keep Kinski just as a playing 4.5, unless there comes a really super easy fixture for Rushworth, and obviously by then I would have some idea of how defensively solid in the Prem is Coventry, right? So it's a bit of a wait and see for me. Off the top of my head, it'll probably be Kinski for the long term, for the midterm at the very least, until I do my wildcard or I have a spare transfer to kind of, work on that. All right. Let's see. Any more questions for me? Yeah, I think Aaron mentioned about Santos. I don't know much about Santos, I'll admit. I didn't watch much of him when he was at Chelsea, but I think he's a solid player. But I did hear that he's mainly going to be more of a 6 than 8. So we'll see. We'll see how much he kind of wanders up. And I think if we have a low block that we are going to play against, I would play Tielemans with Mainu rather than Santos. That's the impression I get right now. Okay. Did you want to?
Shall I take one? Yeah. Shall I take one from GV?
GV. How much in the bank for your team, Leon?
Yeah, for this, I saw this question just now. I wanted to answer it during the Q&As. So pretty much, I'm not gonna get Haaland. The plan is I'm not gonna get Haaland until I wildcard. It's as simple as that. Like, I've spread the money around so much that the plan is really just to get Haaland back once I wildcard. So if, as I said at the start as well, if I really feel the need to, uproot my whole strategy and just rethink everything, I could wildcard as early as game week 3. But it's open in the air, the wildcard. It could be game week 3, it could be game week 5, game week 6, game week 7. I'm going to leave it flexible, but the draft that I've made is pretty much in a way that the only way I'm going to get Haaland back is if I wildcard. So that's the short answer. I'll take another one from Henry as well. Right, Henry said,
yes,
how I feel about Colwell's minutes. Yeah, for me as a Chelsea fan, I think Colwell is one of our best centre backs, right? When fit. And I'm not afraid of the other players that you've mentioned, like Lacroix, James, and also Palestra. I actually think that these assets that you've mentioned are all pretty much going to be in the starting 11. If you
Yep.
ask me, those are our first choice players. And in terms of like James and Palestra, they don't really compete with Colwell like for like. Colwell's going to be playing centre back. Reece James either on the right or kind of closer to the middle. And Palestra is on the left. Right, so they all play different functions. And yeah, I think personally I like Colwell's minutes. I'm actually surprised that no one is kind of considering Chelsea defenders. Maybe it could be me having a bit of a bias, but yeah, I mean, I just like the fixtures, especially the Hull in Game Week 4.
I'll chime in here. Once again, shout out to Gabe Deal, my usual Chelsea info giver. Basically, he loves Colwell as well. He thinks Colwell is your best defender, and he would be nailed basically. So I think Colwell is a good shout, especially since he's 5.0. I think Palestra is really interesting. I heard he's actually really, really good down the left. So if he really has a big play in terms of further up the field, I think at 5.5 is quite interesting. If Chelsea defensively is solid. Obviously, nobody's thinking of Lacroix because he's 6. I think Reece James, everybody has injury concerns about him as per usual, but for now he's fit. So I agree. I'm not too sure why people are not looking at them. It could be a Xabi Alonso thing. People don't know how they're going to set up under Xabi Alonso. Is it going to be 3 at the back? Then who's playing right wing back? Hato?
Nah, I mean, right now, based on what I think Reece James could be playing there.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see in preseason, but sorry, in Game Week 1. But honestly, I do see Alonso playing that kind of 3 at the back, wing back kind of situation that he did in Leverkusen. So it could be that Palestra looks like a really good option, to be fair. Like I watched a couple of preseason highlights on Palestra. He is quite advanced. So he could be like the Reece James on the left. I guess you can call him the Marcos Alonso. For those of you guys who kind of remember Marcos Alonso.
Back. Oh, he was so good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Marcos
I'm
Alonso
gonna quickly answer a few. Don't mind how me bring them out. I just kind of lightning through a bit. Mandit, I think that's your name. Words and Mbremo or Szoboszlai and Semenyo. Definitely the former. I think Words and Mbremo definitely shines through here for me. The other one, Sandri asks, Mbremo or Szoboszlai. Mbremo, if you have the money, obviously that's a 1 million you need to squeeze out. Mbremo for me. And then yes, Rinaldi has a related question, which is it more risky to go without Mbremo or without Szoboszlai? I think Mbremo. Because of fixtures, because of position at which he's playing, Mbremo has the highest ceiling for me. All right. Kelly, Kaylee or Kelly, I think he or she wants to see your team one more time. Is it mine or Nick's, or I assume you want to see Leon's?
Isak. I think she's. Can I see your team?
Isak.
None
of us really.
Isak. Yeah, I don't really have Isak. But okay, yeah, I guess
it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Maguire plus Szoboszlai or Shaw or what? Oh, that's a good question. You want to take this, Leon? Do you have an answer?
I'll go Maguire and Szoboszlai for this. I'll spend the 0.5 on Maguire because I do think like goal threat wise, Maguire is much better than Luke Shaw. So
he is. I tend to agree. Even though I have Shaw, I think I agree. All right. Let's answer a few more. Oh, I did want to go back. Okay, let me go back to a really early question. I'm not sure if Great Bongo, you're still here. Let's quickly talk about Villa. His question very early on, right at the top, is why is everyone sleeping on Villa players when we're the best, 4th best team in the league? So no hate on Villa fans, right? I really enjoyed you guys, like the play that you guys have, but I do think that you guys are a little bit unstable at the point of time, right? As I think I mentioned sometime during the pod, you've lost a few kind of key players, Onana in the middle, Rogers out of the club altogether, Watkins not sure whether he's staying. Obviously, the new kid is quite exciting. Majo, I think that's his name, and of
Yeah,
course,
17-year-old,
yes,
17-year-old
and
forward, right? Yeah.
Manzambi as well. It could be very exciting. But as with kind of replacing parts here and there, I think it's going to be takes a little bit of bidding in, which is why I'm not looking to start with Aston Villa to begin with. And if I'm not wrong, let me just take a quick look. I believe Villa's fixtures are not that easy to begin with. There's an Arsenal fixture in there. There is Brighton away, which is not super easy. But yeah, I do want to shout out that Villa is a good team. I don't want to kind of do that kind of discount you guys basically. All right. Okay, I think that's it. I know there are a lot more questions. Really appreciate it. If you all have more questions, drop them into the chat. I'll kind of reply to them via text if I can. But yeah.
Yeah, you can drop them in the comments as well. Yeah, we can drop it in the
Yes, I mean,
comments and we can continue to
down below.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but I think we had a really, really enjoyable time on the first Gameweek 1 pod. So much to say. And again, we always overrun our 1.5 hours. We'll try to keep to that moving forward for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a joy. And Nick as well. Thanks for coming on for the whole of preseason. And yeah, super excited to take on the rest of the season. So any last words before we sign off on the first Gameweek 1 edition of the FPL Supper podcast?
No, I mean, thanks everyone again for joining us. Next time, go and get some. If I'm based in Asia, go get some supper. That's the whole point, right? Get your supper, join us, listen to us while you eat your supper. And I really appreciate all the questions. Right after this, just go into the comments right now and type and kind of leave them there. I will reply to them. I really want to answer a lot of your questions. It's actually really good questions. And I want to give my thoughts, right? But we shouldn't keep the pod for too long. Sorry for keeping you for almost 2 hours. But once again, we'll hope to see you next week, same time. And by then, Gameweek 1 will have happened. Very exciting. So, GV is asking, will you be doing one more stream on Friday? I believe you are, Leon. Are you?
Yes. Yeah. But that will just be me. That will just be the normal deadline streams on the FPL Consult channel. But yeah, our pods will be every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Singapore time or 3 p.m. GMT. Wherever you guys are watching from.
Will it be a live stream, by the way, your deadline stream? Yes. Right?
Yeah. It'll be live. Yeah.
Okay. I will try my best to be in the kind of comment section as well. So if anybody wants to engage with me there, yeah, you can probably find me there as well.
Yeah, that works. All right. So I think that's about it. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And yeah, it's been a joy. We will sign off now. And yeah, please remember, if you're still watching, to drop a like on the stream and also subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate all the support that we can get, and we will see you guys in Gameweek 2, which by then Premier League would have been back. So enjoy.
All the best, guys.
Yes, we'll see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Yep. See you next week. Bye-bye.